Special thanks to Synergy Entertainment for sponsoring today's episode of Movie Time with Crash. You know, there's no better way to really tackle this out of the gate. So, I'm just gonna kind of just come out with it. Sinners is a good film except for one thing that really does kind of bother me. And it's the best way I can describe the movie Sinners. Imagine a road trip and it goes really smoothly for most of the road trip, but then you hit one really loud, really like, ooh, that sounds like it's gonna cost something, kind of like bump in the road, and you have to find a repair shop and get it all repaired and all that, but everything else about the trip is really smooth. It's like that. Sinners is a pretty decent film, but that one bump in the road kind of irks me. And I want to explain that briefly while also reviewing the movie. Sinners is very much a movie that is in fact, a horror movie. It's a terror flicks movie, right? And it's a decent movie. Directed by Michael B. Jordan, and he's also, the star in it, and has a really good, decent cast in it. And honestly, the movie itself is a very good, very interesting plot. It's just, the movie's set in 1932 in the Mississippi Delta, and you gotta keep this in mind with, the timepiece. Also, it was directed by Ryan Coogler, the film, and after trying to leave their troubled lives behind, there's two twin brothers that return to the Mississippi hometown to try and start again, only discovered that, well, there's more to the surface waiting for them back home. And that doesn't sound like an accurate plot, but that's because, well, for one, Google is terrible about actually describing movie plots pretty well. So instead of that, I want to describe the film to you how I feel should be described. A bunch of people in this time period are wanting to blow off steam from dealing with the oppressive, very, very difficult hardships of the culture, the surroundings, and unfortunately, stupid, dumb white people of the time period, and want to get away from it for a little bit and, blow off some steam and have themselves a little bit of a party, a little bit of a chance to unwind and really enjoy themselves, right? And these two twin brothers do just that and help set that up for the whole, town in Mississippi. And I'm not gonna lie, this movie does a really good job at setting up this film as if it was not a horror film at all, or even like a thriller, or I would even say almost the first and second act are set up entirely to make you feel like, oh, this is a horror film. This is a like almost like a history piece. This is almost like a perspective piece. This is almost a very heavy, uncensored, uncut piece of culture that was back then, which is, absolutely 100% not okay now, and certainly wasn't back then. So it sets up the film like that. It doesn't even get into like the horror elements of the film until closer to like I would say the end of the second act, almost the third act. And by the actual third act is when everything just ramps up all at once. And that's what I mean by kind of a road trip. This film starts off really, really, really good, sets you up in a misdirect thinking it's one type of film, and slowly turns into a horror film, but it keeps you engaged. It keeps you interested. Everything's going really smooth, and even when they introduce the horror elements and stuff into it slowly, you have a sneaking suspicion as to what it is, but you don't want to confirm it quite yet. And then suddenly, bump in the road. Now, I'm not going to spoil, obviously, the movie. And telling you what the bump in the road is would spoil, I guess, the big reveal in the movie. So I'm not going to do that. We don't do spoilers here. Unless it's a really shitty movie. Then in which case, yes, I'm going to spoil the hell out of it and save you the time. But this is not a shitty movie. This is actually a really great movie. The casting is fantastic. The eeriness and the ambiance is done well. The really uncensored, uncut commentary of what Mississippi and plantations and, again, the culture was like back then is really good. And a lot of let's just stop beating around the bush, the, racist commentary against how awful white people are back then and how awful white people still can be today is really good. Is really, really good. And I like this film a lot. So much so. I want to own this film on like Blu-ray DVD. But the horror element, the reveal as to what makes this a horror film, I understand why it's there, and it makes sense for the time period back then. I'm just not a fan of a particular supernatural element, if you will. It's not my top 5, and you can kind of guess what genre this is. If you want to look up the spoilers, go ahead. Actually, I'll do you this. If you want, go ahead and go ahead and I guess look it up if you want. I'm not going to stop you, but the point is, said supernatural element kind of ruins the movie a little bit for me, because I was hoping it was something a little more powerful, something a little more in terms of like maybe dark magic or like dark black magic, or maybe it was like something more like religious horror, or maybe it's something more like, because again, the movie's called Sinners, so I'm thinking maybe, oh, this is going to be more horror in terms of like, demonic horror or something like that, but it's not. It's, yeah, it's something else. Now, does this ruin the film for me? No, by all means, because what they do with the supernatural element and how they play off of it is really good. It even harkens back to sort of old culture with this particular supernatural element in older films. So they keep it classic. So, and that's what I like. And I'm noticing that, without outright saying the spoiler, let's just say if you've seen Nosferatu, then you know recently what I'm talking about. That should be the dead giveaway. But regardless, the third act is really good because it plays off of that so well, and there's so many twists and turns and even little bits of drama that are all sprinkled throughout the entire film that has such a good payoff at the end. So I wouldn't even consider this just a horror film. I would reclassify this film as like a horror drama thriller set piece film. I know that's like 4 genres, but still. Also, forgive me for going past the 10-minute mark on this one, but like, there's a lot to talk about with this. The other thing, too, that I guess what I wanted was I wanted more from the supernatural element. I wanted the supernatural element to have more of an impact. And it just feels like, with it being close to the end of the second act and the third act, I just felt like maybe they could have written this a little differently. Again, Ryan Coogler does a great job at, films in general. And Michael B. Jordan does a great job too. And the whole cast is great, so I have no problem with the cast. My problem is, I guess, the way the story was handled near the end was my biggest problem. And it's interesting, too, because the movie even sort of continues the story after the credits. Like, I'm not going to spoil it, but obviously there's an after credits scene and a mid credits scene for this film, too. And the mid credits scene actually kind of reveals a unique plot twist in a way that at first I didn't quite understand, but then I had to look it up and research it, and I'm like, oh, got it. Okay, a little more old folklore to this. And that's the thing. A lot of this film is folklore and horror done in a really, really good way. It is fun. It is entertaining. It is dramatic. It is filled with tension. But the tension comes not from the supernatural element. It comes from the cast and the people just trying to decompress from their surroundings. They're pretty awful surroundings, but they're surroundings. So, and I really like this film. I do a lot. And also, again, we're not going to beat around the bush with this. I don't care what YouTube says or what TOS says or anything, because I've told you guys straight up from the beginning, these opinions are uncut and uncensored for the most part. So that's what I'm going to give to you. the depictions of racism and racist culture, and how you know African American people and black people were treated back then is pretty uncut in this film. So that's the other thing too, is there's a lot of tension and drama from things like that as well too. And as such, it's one of those things that if you're not used to that type of film, you're not used to that type of of commentary, you might not like this film. But for me, I'm used to it. I like films like that. I like films that are raw and just they don't bullshit you with the commentary. That's the truth. So, and that's why I really like this film a lot. For that reason. So, there's between the uncensored sort of raw nature of the film, it's showing you a different perspective from African American black culture in not just a folklore setting or a history setting, or again from this other perspective, but to show you how bad the underlying racism was of that time is, but to integrate this sort of suspenseful thriller horror element to this, which again makes sense at the time, makes this a fantastic film. And you should see it. If you can get past the one bump in the road, my one complaint, and it's a pretty big one, it's a major one, you're going to like this film a lot. And if you can get, I guess this is my message to all the bigots and racists out there. If you can swallow your pride and know that, hey, my ancestors were wrong, and my culture and people were wrong about how we treated African American and black culture, then if you can be more mature and go into this film for what it is, I think you'll enjoy it a lot more. Also, special thanks to Synergy Entertainment for sponsoring this episode and allowing me to honestly just see the movie. They hooked me up with movie ticket, with popcorn, and with a fountain drink, and the movie was great. I enjoyed it a lot. Quite a bit, in fact. So, you should go see this film. And I plan on owning it. Because this is how you do commentary right, show the culture right, do horror in a really good way with a nice twist, even despite the fact that I'm not a fan of said element, and how you do the tension of a film right. I'm Crash, and I hope you enjoyed the review.